When Israel started defending itself after October 7th, it was bad. They shouldn't do that. Too many innocent Palestinians are going to die. They are not getting humanitarian aid. It's just not a good thing. Then Israel lets humanitarian aid in, and it was bad because it wasn't enough, and Palestinians are still starving. Then Israel started to distribute it itself, and that was also bad. It's almost as if nothing Israel or Jewish people can do will actually ever be okay. And this is exactly what we're seeing today again and again, where a new UN report came out that the news were very quick to jump on, saying 800 Palestinians have died around the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites, which is the sort of US Israel joint control of direct distribution of the aid to the Palestinians instead of going through different organizations, which in the past have allowed Hamas to steal that aid and use it to fund its war against Israel, which of course is a preferable solution to everybody else because they want Hamas to stay in there so they can continually fight the one and only Jewish state. Welcome to the reality show. Joining me today are Marco and Richard, and we'll be talking about both the recent UN report and, of course, the condemnations that came after. Before we go a bit further, Marco, any opening thoughts on this topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, anything coming out of the EU, sorry, pick your poison, the UN is, of course, loaded with propaganda, anti-Israeli propaganda. Why? Because the UN is a collection of largely uncivilized, outright savage, and often dictatorial countries. Only a minority of them are actually Western civilized countries. And the unanimity seems to be that Israel is not allowed to defend itself because it becomes a nuisance for the savage country around it who wants to destroy it because they're Jewish. For no other reason but the fact that it's a racial hate for Israel itself. And of course, providing it's also a big mistake. It's an own goal from the part of the Israeli government because you do not provide assistance to your own enemy. This is a principle that we've been talked about, and we can discuss later on. However, when you give money or food, like in this case, to the Gazans, the food ends up in Hamas hands. Why? Because the Gazans are Hamas. I mean, we cannot say enough. People in Gaza are the people whose government is Hamas. The people who voted for Hamas, the people who are still supporting Hamas. So yes, the argument is, oh, these people are desperate, they need food. Well, hang on a second. Yes, they might need food, but why are these in this position in the first place? It's totally of their own making. They chose to attack Israel. They chose to create effectively a military state with the only purpose of attacking Israel. They could have chosen to go down the route of civilized society where they would have built another Tel Aviv. They would have had big wealth at their doorstep, but they chosen to go down the route of violence. So everything that's happening to them right now, it's their problem. It's the consequence of the choices that they make. They could surrender now and they would have all the food they want. They could return the hostages they're still holding since October 7, 23, and everything would stop. Israel would stop whatever military action is taking in order to defend itself, in order to hit the terrorists. They are still, despite all the condemnation from international quarters, terrorists who are still hiding among the few civilians, the few innocent civilians left in Gaza. They hide in UN facilities, they hide in school, they hide in hospitals, and despite all this series of proof, it's been documented over and over and over again. The international community still doesn't care. They hate Israel more than they hate the savages behind Hamas. So Obviously, they're going to write a report that condemns Israel, aren't they?
The biggest outrage at the moment is the fact that the UN is not controlling the aid being delivered to Palestinians, and that's what the international community is up in arms about. It's nothing to do with whether Palestinians receive food or not. It's the fact that the Israelis are choosing an independent route to ensure, as best they can, that that aid doesn't get into Hamas's hands or isn't sold in order to fund and support Hamas's war effort and terrorism. I mean, that's what's going on here, quite honestly. And we're in this propaganda phase where you keep being thrown every few days or every day, even sometimes multiple times a day, as the number is updated, supposedly. A propaganda phase of people being shot close to near aid sites. A lot of it is extremely vague. And of course, if you have a fake inflated number, the thing about maths is if you add it to another fake inflated number, you end up with a larger fake inflated number, but no closer to the truth. And it's not the truth that they're trying to get you to. It is simply the fact that they want to ensure that the UN comes back again and Israel is not able to plow its own meadow, to cast its own future and ensure its own route to ensuring peace for its people, and at the same time, to an extent that it is unnecessary, feeding its enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we sort of move on, I want to watch one video that has been sort of shared around, specifically from the site at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to show this is I am really struggling to understand why something like this even happens. If you guys remember, I'm not sure if you were on that episode, but when Gaza Humanitarian Foundation started, there was this photo going around where they were basically all waiting in line. They were in this like sort of like tighter corners to basically ensure security, to ensure nothing crazy happens. And of course, what you would expect from the pro-Hamas crowd is they were comparing it to Holocaust. Basically, the fact that people had to stand in line is basically Holocaust. But in this situation, you had, I mean, I don't know how many, hundreds, maybe thousands of Palestinians basically running around. And again, this is enemy population. These are people who celebrated October 7. These are people who are refusing to surrender to you, who are refusing to give up Hamas, refusing to do anything when it comes to ending this war. And they are simply allowed to basically like run around like that. I think there was like an aid convoy there or something like that, from my understanding. But what would happen if they just decide to, not even all of them like decide to run against the soldier, but like one or two people decided to do something from that crowd against the IDF soldiers? I mean, this is a horrible situation to ever find yourself in, and I have no idea why it would even happen. Yeah, I mean, Marco, any just thoughts on this?
I mean, an image is not an argument. However, just look at the way these people behave. The Israeli provide the food, but they have to abandon it at a safe distance, because if only an IDF guy or an Israeli guy, even a poor driver, were left behind, would be torn limb to limb by this mob. Because that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a breakdown in civilization, because these people clearly have never been civilized. The way they attack the convoy is the typical, they could well be a bunch of locusts. These are human beings that choose to live and behave like animals by jettisons every single principle of civilization. And therefore, when somebody offers them food, they don't stand in line and get what they've been given, recognize that it's been given to them. It's not owed to them in the first place. No, they attack, they probably fight among each other, and at the same time they also try and goad the other side, trying to force them or invite them to shoot or to do something stupid, because that would be very good PR for them. Some of the people there are actually pushing other people in order to get the IDF to shoot to them. If only a shot were fired, that would be their propaganda victory. That's one of the things that they rely on. Unfortunately, in this occasion, this video, they weren't shot. Frankly, you know, again, if it were for me, there wouldn't be a truck there to loot in that way. But again, the desperation of these people, whether they're hungry or not hungry, it's up to them. They could choose to surrender now. They could stop their situation if they really cared, but they don't, do they?
Yeah. And you've got to compare a lot of this footage we've just seen, for example, with a lot of the descriptions as to how this is presented. I mean, the description from the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, part of the UN, kept talking about people lining up, quote, lining up for essential supplies such as food. Now, is the video we've seen a case of an example of lining up? Because that always makes it sound completely orderly and under control. And as you said, if a group or even a handful of the number there were to run towards the soldiers en masse, then you know the danger would be to the soldiers, and the need to defend themselves would be apparent. But of course, it would still be described as a lining up, as if, you know, or all these phrases that you keep hearing while trying to access aid, trying to reach food. Yeah, all of that is endlessly repeated. And this Office of High Commission of Human Rights, they also listed their sources for their reports about you know, people being shot near aid collection facilities. And they list their sources as hospitals in Gaza, so that'll be Hamas then, won't it? Because we know how much the doctors and those that work in the hospitals, either some of them hold hostages themselves in their own homes, some of them facilitate terrorists within the hospitals themselves. Also cemeteries, so that'll be Hamas as well, run, won't it? Because we know how much the cheapest Pallywood special effects trick is white sheets and red dye, isn't it? And we've seen bodies sitting up while supposedly dead in such circumstances in the past. Palestinian health authorities they list, which is apparently different from hospitals in Gaza, but it's also Hamas, isn't it? So you know you can't say that isn't. NGOs, so they're certainly the Hamas facilitators. They've repeatedly been assisting in all sorts of ways, and our partners on the ground, i.e., other UN organisations. So those that also double up, working for the UN, working for Hamas. That's if you split Hamas into a variety of different groups and then claim that you've got lots of different sources, you haven't. You've simply got one, and it's Hamas every time. So that's what makes this number utterly untrustworthy, and you know you cannot rely on it, and yet it's repeated endlessly. But repetition is not verification.
Yeah, and also on the sort of you know, going to different sources, it's not like you are only in Hamas or you are only in health ministry. The fact is that health ministry is part of the government. It's not like in America, right? It's not like you are either Republican or you are in the Trump's cabinet. You can be both. So the same thing is happening here. Is oftentimes Hamas members are the ones who are at these positions. I mean, you have to be. Now, sort of like talking about now this UN report about how many people sort of have died. So reading from the report, it said we've recorded now 798 killings, including 615 in the vicinity of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. Meaning this number is specifically number associated with sort of people trying to reach aid, which this also means that about how much is it? 170 people were killed while trying to reach other aid, meaning aid from different organizations that are currently distributing aid. So, but you know, this doesn't matter. It's automatically everything is done by Israel, and I'm not sure where I first heard this these reports started coming out that people are dying on their way to reach um, aid in the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and how people are now trying to use it against Israel, which I cannot imagine can be something different than anti-Semitic trope. I mean, just try to imagine, right? So Israel was attacked on October 7th, but instead of Israel, and these people believe Israel is a genocidal state, but instead of Israel like actually, flooring Gaza or doing anything in that regard, what they've instead done is they waged one like and a half year war. Then they set up this foundation to distribute aid to the Palestinians, and then every day they kill about 5 people or so, and slowly, maybe one day, they'll actually kill Palestinians. I mean, it's an incredibly stupid idea. It's an incredibly, I mean, straight up like anti-Semitic, this like scheming Jews just cannot wait to actually pick off Palestinians. Nobody is discussing the fact that it might be Hamas who is actually trying to pick off Palestinians who are getting the aid directly. It's Hamas who would benefit from Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to go out, right? Because they would get more access to the aid. They would actually be able to steal it more again. No, it's always Israel. And the West is playing exactly into this, is helping Hamas make propaganda because it needs both, right? It's not just Hamas and Palestinians creating the propaganda on the ground. It needs international organizations. It needs Western countries to spread that propaganda and make sure it has use. So, yeah, Marco, what do you make of this So this number specifically, 800, is supposed to be from May 27th, where Gaza Humanitarian Foundation started, until July 7th. And again, this is the UN report.
Well, yeah, it's not 800, it's 798. It's much more precise than that because they really got the finger on the pulse. So whatever happens there, they can tell exactly that the people dead were dead because they were peacefully waiting in line for their morsel of food. No, most of them were actually trying to attack the convoy in order to get the food to hand over to Hamas, and probably they were Hamas combatant anyway. And even if it goes to a Gazans, the food will be taken over by Hamas. If it's not Hamas, it's going to be Islamic Jihad. If it's not Islamic Jihad, it's going to be one of the clans on the ground in Gaza. So this food, if it doesn't reach the people who are literally innocent, I mean the five of them, and the children, it's because Hamas or somebody else who's supposed to be the government of the people is taking it over in order to fight Israel. So, these numbers are pure propaganda. First of all, it doesn't matter. 800 millions, it doesn't matter. These numbers are caused by the Gazans themselves. They attacked Israel on October 7. They slaughtered 1,300 people. They took 250 hostages. 50 of them are still held there. So is this the behavior of a people who wants peace, where people who are start to fighting? I mean, they started the fight in the first place. A normal civilization would have surrendered by now because they would have realized, okay, this was a stupid thing to do. People on the ground would start thinking, well, hang on a second, why should I pay for the action of a few people who want to slaughter the Jews? Well, because they all want to slaughter the Jews. It's in their culture, it's in their ideology. And that's why Hamas was elected with clear intention of destroying Israel. I mean, the charter is still out there for anyone to see. And who was providing the food before the Israelis stupidly took it over? Well, it was UNRWA, was the UN. It was the same organization that was providing venues for Hamas fighters. The same organization that not only was literally providing support to the Hamas fighter via food and money, gathered all over the planet through the United States nations, but also they were the very people who've been educating the children in Gaza to hate the Jews. The same people that in West Gaza have been recorded a number of times teaching hate to the little children in the West Bank. Children that grew up thinking that driving a car against a bunch of Israelis is a good thing to do because you're going to go to heaven or wherever they go. So, you know, you cannot blame anyone else for causing the downfall of your own civilization. First of all, it wasn't a civilization as such, so, you know, whatever. But to be honest, the most unforgivable thing is the actions of the Israeli government, who chooses to support their own enemies because it looks good on the international stage. And that's absolutely against Israel's own interest. Their interest should be conclude the war as soon as you can and as decisively as you can. You must get these people on their knees to surrender, to recognize what they've done, and to get on a path where you move away from the ideology of hate, racial hate, religious hate, which has caused events like October 7th. I mean, the Gazans have been fighting Israel from the very beginning because it's in the culture. It's their ideology, their motivation, you know, the motive, the thing that moved them is the hate for Israel. So until you reform them, until you get them to change their ways, you can feed them as much as you like. They're still gonna hate you. They're still gonna kill you as soon as they're back on their feet. So, Israel, wake up. This is not in your own interest to provide food to your own enemies. What other civilization during a war has ever provided food to the other side? Imagine Britain and the United States parachuting food to the Nazis during the Second World War. I mean, come on, guys.
And of course, Palestinian civilians were shot when trying to get to aid by Hamas, when Hamas used to sit on top of the trucks with their weapons, shooting at Palestinians in the old method of distribution when it was run by the UN. And of course, you know, in that case, some of the Palestinian civilians probably were desperate for food because it was all commandeered by Hamas in order to fund their own war effort to be resold back to them, and that's what happened repeatedly. But of course, were there reports then about how terrible it was that Hamas was shooting Palestinians who were desperately trying to get hold of aid? No. It's only when you can twist it and make it the Jews the ones responsible. And at the same time, as in the example of the clip you just showed, at no point does anybody describe what the Palestinians are actually doing at any given moment, where if some of them are shot, and if that's the case, and when some of them are, you know, claim to have been shot and clearly weren't. So I mean, all of that's in it. I mean, you quote the two categories of numbers there that make up the near 800. Those that are near GHF sites, near being a very loose, undefined term that allows you to be very vague and unspecific, and of course does go some way to explaining why sometimes the GHF say no one was shot at our sites today, or we got no information about this because near is not actually in or not actually even near in many cases. And then the other quote from the UN report said they were presumably en routes of aid convoys. They're presumably en routes of aid convoys, but you know exactly how many there are to the precise number. So presumably and a precise number go together. And of course, lots of things go together in lots of these reports, which are entirely in conflict, entirely contradictory. We're always being told it's a genocide in Gaza, and therefore the population ought to be going down. And yet in some of these reports, we're now talking about 2.3 million starving Palestinians, in quotes, where when you're concentrating on the starving element, you need the number to be bigger. And of course, you know, how does that work? It just exposes the lie.
I didn't even know there is that many Palestinians in Gaza, but you know, you learn new things every day. Yeah, I mean, it really has to be pointed out this idea that, yeah, basically, like, what are we even doing here at this point? This was supposed to be a war. When you fight a war, you try to finish it as soon as possible. You do whatever is necessary to end it because you understand the nature of war. You understand that when a war happens, it's one side saying, we don't care anymore about dealing with you by persuasion or by or peacefully or by civil in any way. We simply want to kill you. We want to take you as hostages so we can kill more of you into the future, or we can get our killers back into the future, in the future, so we can continue committing these acts against you. WB is asking, why don't you show the video you're talking about? Well, we showed the video earlier. People can go back where it's basically it's a site. I mean, I guess we can show it again just for a little bit so people can see. It was this one. So I'll just quickly click through it. Yeah, so basically it's one video where it shows nothing happens. Now, of course, this is one video. It doesn't mean that now nothing could have ever happened because of this one video. But I think that something more important about this video is the fact that something like that even gets recorded or even happens. The fact that these Palestinians could at any point simply run at the IDF soldiers, which again, those are the enemy state. Those are the enemy population that are not being controlled. It's not like you see enemy population and now you have to go kill them, but you have to make sure your soldiers are safe. I don't think this was a safe situation. So yeah, you have to properly conduct this war and end it as soon as possible. And this is something that has not been happening. Israel doesn't have a still seemingly clear goal. We have been hearing reports about that more and more of Gaza is pretty much under direct control of Israel. I think we're upwards of 80 to 85% or something like that. But the fact is, ceasefire is still sort of talked about instead of actual occupation, instead of actual ending and some future of this conflict where Gaza will be more peaceful. Now I want to bring up basically the reaction of this, as you would expect from the European states. But before that, let me remind people that today's episode of the reality show is sponsored by The Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy, a new book written by Zoltan Sendes, which I think explores many different areas from science through sort of like certain objectivist lens, or at least objectivist influence, that I think you won't really find anywhere else. You can find the book on Amazon. I definitely recommend checking it out, The Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy, and also thank you Zoltan Sendes for sponsoring this episode of the reality show. Moving on to the reaction. So I think this was spearheaded by United Kingdom, who has urged the immediate Gaza ceasefire, criticizing Israeli policy. It was a joint declaration by the UK and 25 other nations denouncing the humanitarian conditions in Gaza, criticizing Israeli policy, and urging immediate ceasefire and hostage release, which, as long as you add a hostage release at the end, you can pretty much say whatever you want. But the fact is that this is another example of the West not really understanding the nature of war. They still look at this as some sort of protest, that basically, some people in Gaza are protesting against the actions of Israeli state, and so since they are doing that, Israel should address it somehow. No, this is war. Israel should fight it and finish it as soon as possible. Marco, you are in the United Kingdom. What do you make of? What do you make of? I guess I can add one more thing about some things that were brought up. Is they accused Israel of drip feeding of aid and of inhuman killing of civilians, including children.
Well, I mean, let's not forget that the provision of humanitarian aid is a multi-billion business. Lots of people, mostly parasites, take advantage from our tax money being spread across the world by people who pretend, most of the time they don't even feed the people that are supposed that we are paying for. So, there's also that dimension there. The UN likes the big billion budgets. The Gazans certainly like the money. Hamas love the money, which is not coming right now. And that's why Israel decided to kick out UNRWA, not only because of the anti-Semitic education that the children were given, but also because UNRWA was literally providing financial and food support to Hamas itself. So in order to weaken Hamas, you have to get rid of their financial and literal material support. And that's why they went down this route. However, again, it's a stupid thing to do. You do not feed your enemy. Again, the principle why you don't do that is because for the same reason that you do not drink dirty water or eat rotten meat, because it's not good for you. And supporting a civilization which hates you, which has in its own very nature as a civilization to hate Jews and kill Israelis, well, that's not good for you either. So, and that's why the threat of Hamas has to be eliminated altogether. That's why you defend yourself with the intention of getting rid of your enemy, because your enemy is the threat which threatens your own existence. And the fact that the states in the West do not support Israel is not just pure evil in a sense. It's not just the fact that the states in the West see their power diminished by not being able to control Israel's actions, but it's also the fact that it exposed this lack of thinking in principles that the West should go down. The route of recognizing a principle, thinking rationally, and using self-interest as a motivator rather than aggrandizing and what politicians do, trying to get prestige out of any occasion. Prestige and of course feathering the nest as well, economically and materially. But one of the things that they like to use the UN cause in the West is the word, you're depriving the Palestinians of dignity. Well, dignity is one of those package deals that the UN loves so much. They put dignity together with human rights stuff. And dignity is effectively this kind of sense of honor and respect that somebody should receive. And according to the UN, people have got the right to dignity. So you should respect and value somebody, even if they're holding a rocket-propelled grenade on the shoulder, ready to shoot a bunch of kids having fun at a concert in Israel. So you should give, according to the UN, respect to these people the same way you respect somebody who's invented a cure for cancer. I mean, how screwed up is that? How screwed up thinking the West is going down? You should recognize that life is sacred. However, individual people have got individual ability to think. We all have a brain. We're not connected like the Borg in Star Trek. We can all make a choice. We can choose to behave in a civilized way, in a way that favor lives rather than create destruction and death, and ultimately our own destruction. So you don't have to value these people because the UN's policy is to value anyone who's a terrorist or anyone who's a very good producer or very good person. To them, it's all the same. It's a kind of moral relativism that has been destroying our civilization, frankly.
And I'll tell you what deprives Gazans of human dignity: Islamism. That does it every time. And of course, the ensuing Jew hatred that is an integral part of that. within this report, the statement by these 25 countries, they also refer, of course, to the occupied Palestinian territories every time, which always shows enormous balance and understanding of the situation, doesn't it? Israel has responded to it by saying it's disconnected from reality, which it absolutely is. I wanted to give you a kind of flavour of how the BBC are reporting it, though, because that in itself is quite telling. So this is a quote from the BBC report about this statement by these 25 countries. It says, they quote, the key paragraph, in a key paragraph, the 25 countries say they are prepared to take further action to support a ceasefire and political pathway to security and peace. That is code for, this is still the BBC talking, that is code for recognizing a state of Palestine. Something many countries have done, but not all, including the UK and France, end quote. And then it goes on to suggest that the UK and France are getting very close to using that lever against Israel, which is what the BBC is crowing for in nearly every report, in nearly every juncture. And of course, it's using all of the techniques that Hamas are using, including the technique at the moment, which is on social media, showing doctors in Gaza holding up signs talking about malnourished children. Because the way to establish truth on social media is to hold up a sign saying what you think is the truth, and then that's enough evidence. No need to actually show any evidence of it, and no need to demonstrate what's causing any malnourishment. You do show and therefore that it's not some entirely separate wasting disease that's irrelevant. It's always painted as if it's the Jews' fault, and the BBC and of course the 25 countries, led, I'm sad to say, by the UK, are keen to play along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go into a few more things. First, I want to bring up, we have a super chat from, I think it was Jonathan. I cannot bring it up. Super chat from Jonathan, thank you so much. And super chat from Bonnie, thank you so much. So I want to bring up where they say Israel is drip feeding aid and also inhuman killing of civilians, including children. So both of those are like super like hardcore red herrings. There is no amount of aid that Israel could provide. They could like even right now, I think there is like 2,000 calories on average per every single Palestinian going in. That's more than enough. Should be more than enough, and definitely is not on the starvation level or anything like that. But that it could be 4,000, it could be 10,000, and it still wouldn't be enough because it's not what it's about. And sort of trying to say that it is ridiculous, and also saying inhuman killing of civilians. Well, first of all, is there a humane way of killing civilians that would be accepted? No, the number was too high in December 23. That's when it was already way too much. So no, don't give me this idea that if only Israel fought this more properly, if only they distributed more aid or fought it more carefully, that somehow it would have made it okay. Israel was never allowed. It never had the right to defend itself, if you want to put it that way. Israel should have done shouldn't have done anything with it. It shouldn't have distributed aid. It shouldn't have given in to this idea that the way to fight a war morally is to sacrifice as many of your own soldiers for the people who are celebrating your death as possible. And Richard, you mentioned the recognizing of the Palestinian state, and this is exactly the policy the West has been showing to everybody, right? It's the way to actually get something in the world is to invade nations and kill people. Russia has invaded Crimea in 2014. Then it has invaded all of Ukraine in 2022, and now we're talking like, oh, maybe if we just recognize the Crimea, and technically Crimea is, of course, considered an illegally occupied territory. But now we're talking about, well, maybe we can just give Crimea and Donetsk and Luhansk as part of Russia, and maybe that will be enough. Palestinians kill a bunch of Jews on October 7th. Well, maybe if we just recognize the Palestinian state, that will actually calm them down. We are talking about the ceasefire. Maybe if we release Marwan Barghouti, the architect of the first Intifada, maybe that will calm down the Palestinians, getting their number one killer of Jews back. No, this is the exact kind of appeasing that will simply bring more violence, because we are telling them the way to actually get something is to commit violence against Jews. Do you want to get the recognized Palestinian state? Attack Jews as much as you can, and European nations will start recognizing you as a state. With that, Marco, any last thoughts from you or anything else you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, well, I mean, all these propaganda numbers, we've seen them used during the COVID times when we had the death ticker every day, just to make you feel more afraid and comply with what the state told you to do. And that's why, similarly, there was a fake, jacked up number of death. People, there was a decision, people died of COVID and with COVID. They were all bunched together. If you died under the bus, but the test showed you had COVID or whatever, you would have been chalked down as a COVID death. And the Palestinians are doing the same. In order to inflate the numbers, to make it look like, oh my God, it's a tragedy. Anyone who dies anywhere near one of these food centers are chalked down as killed by Israel, first of all, whatever the reason of death. And then, of course, they died because they were trying to feed themselves, the poor souls. Well, I've never seen a starvation that lasted over a year. Already more than a year ago, we're told, oh, Gaza is nearly the borderline of starvation, famine is approaching. Well, only a few weeks ago, a terrorist was eating a cafe. I mean, how many places where famine goes on have got cafes where people gather and have a jolly with terrorists? So, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, these people get away with literally with murder, the Palestinians and so-called Palestinians, and their supporters here in the West are just playing the hand, because anti-Semitism is on the rise, because the Jews are always the canaries in a coal mine, really. When the states and the culture gets to the point where we really ought to check our premises, the Jews are the first ones to be feeling the kind of violence and sense of hate that is being developed in the cultures. When we lose our real morality, when when we start believing statism and the stronger state, that's when we lose the importance of individual rights and why freedom is important. It's not a luxury. It's not something given by the state, but it's something. It's a necessary condition for human thriving. If we move away from it, if we start behaving like in Nazi Germany in the 30s, well, Weimar Republic, there's only an outcome, and it's going to be more death, more destruction.
I like your comparison, Daniel, to Russia and particularly to Crimea, which is obviously 11 years ago. And yet, have we been trained every day, every week during that 11-year period to describe Crimea as the illegally occupied Crimea? No, it's not even mentioned, is it? I mean, it's literally banked as an invaded territory that is now so assumed to be part of Russia by so many they don't even refer to it. Certainly not to refer to it endlessly as the illegally occupied Crimea. I wanted to point out one of the techniques you keep on seeing within all the reports, where they attempt to show an individual voice describing the experience at an aid site. Those are particularly ropey in terms of being convincing. When they talk about suddenly tanks surrounded us, because tanks can pop out from anywhere. Or I haven't eaten bread in 15 days. That's one of the popular BBC ones that are being headlined all over the place at the moment. Hadn't eaten bread in 15 days. I don't know what else you'd eaten. But of course, all of that is missing from any argument being made here. All of it is about invention, exaggeration, a dropping of context, a distortion of the impression that you're trying to give. What they want to do is associate aid delivery with Israeli shooting. It doesn't matter whether it's true. It doesn't matter what circumstances. It doesn't matter what any Gazan or Palestinian or whatever is doing at the time, even if it's trying to attack an IDF soldier. So long as they're near an aid site, it's Palestinians or Gazans trying to access aid, Israel shooting. That's all you need to know, so far as the mainstream media is concerned, and their slavish masters or cohorts in this, the international community, which includes, sadly, our own country of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think someone should call BBC because I think I haven't eaten bread in like a month. Yeah, maybe there's a even bigger story here. Let's
I
actually.
suggest you write it on a placard and hold it up, because I mean,
I would do that gag if I had some piece of paper here. Let's actually watch the video again because not a single time I've played it towards the end, and there is something actually interesting in the end. So we have the Palestinians sort of clapping and sending hearts and sort of being nice towards the IDF or being thankful. But I don't care for what they cheer because I've seen for what else they cheer. So again, this doesn't excuse anything. This doesn't. We've seen this obsession with sort of trying to focus on every single like positive part coming out of Gaza. Oh, look, they are speaking out against Hamas. Oh, look, they are saying they don't want Hamas to be here anymore. But we haven't seen any concrete actions. So yeah, it's easy to cheer when you're protected by the IDF and when you are getting aid from the IDF, but these people will kill Jews if they get another chance.
Yeah, and that's why the UN is pushing about they have dignity. No, they do not. Dignity in terms of honor, respect, and prestige has to be earned. These people are not earning it. These people are still holding hostages at every point. They've been supporting the Islamic terrorists that caused October 7 in the first place. So, get over it.
And with that, Richard, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I'll just add where people can find other condensed principles from the war and from other aspects that we've applied objectivism to. You can check out the Briefly Objective, the sister channel to this on YouTube. The link's in the description below where it says for shorter form material, click here, and please do so. Please watch those, like and subscribe. It covers all of the aspects we've been talking about in terms of feeding your enemy, especially.
And this episode of the reality show was sponsored by The Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy. You can visit the link in the chat and in the description to find out more, as well as you can find out more about the irreplaceable Spark conference. Simply visit objectivism.co.uk and you'll find out more. With that, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective and the reality show. Bye bye.